Oh, it is? Okay, fine. First and foremost, I want to thank the Rosh Yeshiva for inviting me over here, especially for Aaron, for arranging everything. Hopefully, generally when people invite me, it's usually to speak about topics that most people don't generally speak about. So, which is interesting when you think about it. The topic of music. Music is so fundamental in our lives that it's fundamental not only in our lives, even in Yiddishkeit. Even when we're dealing in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, there was also music was involved. But yet, you don't hear too much about it. There's not too much that's spoken about it. Whenever I'm dealing with a subject, and you really want to try to get to the fundamentals of a subject, I always try to think about it. How would I explain this to somebody who has absolutely zero ideas of this? So, if let's say you're speaking about Sukkot. Imagine you have a guy that comes up and he says, what is this that you're doing? Assuming that they never saw a Yid before in their life. How are you going to explain to them you have a lulav and you have a lemon and you're going to shake it? If you're not able to explain it to the most basic level, then I feel like you're missing something in understanding the basic level of something. When you think about music, imagine you have a deaf person from birth. Never heard about music before, never even saw someone dance before. And he goes and he says, please try to explain to me what music is. How do you explain that? You have, so there's one noise followed by another noise, and you put those noises together, it makes a tune, and that tune makes you want to dance. And then I was going to ask you, so what is dance? What does it mean to dance? So you say, depending if you're Ashkenaz or if you're Sephardi, that depends on what dance is. What's a dance of an Ashkenaz? You hold the guy's hand next to you and you run around in a circle. The really advanced dancing is, the 2 steps, 1 step forward, 2 steps back, counterclockwise. Usually when we have the most advanced dancers in, the chasanas, they have to break off to their own circles because not everybody's able to upkeep with these really high level, dance moves. What is a Sephardi dance? Sephardi dance, you shake your feet a little bit and then you fix some light bulbs, and depending on the level of the Sephardi, the light bulb might be in the front, it might be on the side, it might be up. That's dance. Does it make any sense to you? Is there any other external stimuli that happens that when you have something get played, you want to make you feel yourself, you want to move, you want to dance, to the extent, put it this way, you're walking down the street, you see a guy dancing by himself in the corner. I think this guy's crazy. And then let's say you go and you see he has little headphones in there. So you're like, okay, he's not crazy. He's interesting. But then let's say you hear the music that he is dancing to. Then all of a sudden it went for like this guy has a situation to this guy has not so much of a situation to this guy's pretty talented. So music not only has the ability to change the way that we behave, it also changes the way that we perceive things, that we perceive reality. Whenever I speak to people about the effects of music, the effects of non-Jewish music, people always say, doesn't make much of an effect on me, it doesn't matter, it doesn't really bother me, it doesn't change me. So, in order to put all those theories aside, I'm going to actually share with you a lot of scientific ideas on it. We're not even going to talk about from the Yiddishkeit perspective for a good 15 minutes. I want to show you what the non-Jewish world says about music, to the extent of what it does. So Scientific American was in a respective scientific journal, says that there's 3 parts in the brain that are activated when you listen to music. And it's a pleasure, there's a pleasure and reward stimuli that gets activated in your brain when you listen to music. To the extent that the more that you enjoy music, the more that it's going to be activated. Meaning, if you have 2 people that are listening to the same exact song, one person will get significantly more pleasure than the other, and it will reflect in their chemical reactions in the brain. The Reb Shlomo Alkabetz, which is the author of L'cha Dodi, goes and says that music has the ability that's so pleasurable that it has the ability to remove a person from his surrounding, that they don't know what's going on. And I don't know if you've seen this, but I come from New York, and New York there's a subway, and you have to unfortunately take this public transportation sometimes, and you see people sit over there with their music, and they get so into their own world that sometimes they start singing out loud. And they're not the best singers, but they're not putting, it sounds like they're hitting puberty as they're going through their tunes, and they sound terrible, but they're completely oblivious to everything that's going on because they're so much in their own world. Rabbi Yisrael of Mudgets had a, advanced medical issues, also involving diabetes, and he had some gangrene on his foot that the doctor needed to operate on. And the doctor went and he wanted to put him under anesthesia. He wanted to put him under. And Rabbi Yisrael said, no, no, no. He says, I don't want to go under. He says, you can't, you're talking about scraping off part of a leg. We can't, you have to go under. It's not going to work all the way around. He says, don't worry about it. Somehow, he was able to convince the doctor. He says, don't worry about it. Let me take care of me. You take care of what you need to do. Don't worry about it. And the Majlisa dynasty, whoever is familiar with the Hasidic dynasty, they were very, very involved in composing nigunim. And while the doctor was operating, the Rebbe would put himself into, he started, fixing up one of his tunes of Slichas, and from that he was so much in another world that he wasn't budging. He was able to go and follow through. Nowadays, you go to a dentist, the needle hurts, so they have to put anesthesia on the needle that's going to numb you. Imagine what you have to go through to put yourself in a situation that you don't feel it. It says music has the ability to do that. Music has the ability to remove yourself from the surrounding and put yourself in a situation that you're oblivious to everything that's going around you. There are numerous scientific studies that were done. They had on people that had anxiety issues, that music helped them to the same level to reduce the anxiety as medication. Obviously not to the extent that it was, not the long-term effect, but it had a strong effect in it. They had study after study about the effects of music, that it's good for dementia, anxiety, depression, and even cancer, that it helps people. Now, obviously, you can ask, well, what type of music that they were listening to? I guarantee you they weren't listening to the type of music that the majority of people are listening to nowadays. That's not the music that's considered helpful. There was another study that was done on people that were incarcerated, people that were in prison. A study was done in 2016 that they saw that inmates that were listening to music, a particular type of music, they found that their self-esteem was raised, and they had better mental health overall. That's the extent that it had on music. There was also a study done on children. When a child goes into a doctor's office, usually it's the white coat syndrome. They get very, very nervous. They get very scared. There was a study done on 42 children. They went to the hospital, ages from 3 to ages of 11. And these 42 children that were picked on the study each had to have an IV line placed in them. So they had to have the needle placed into their hand, and they had to have some fluid running in. Now, it's very painful and very difficult for somebody to go and place that into a child. They split the group into two. For one group, they played some music in the background. For another group of the children, they played no music in the background. And they saw across the board that the children that had music in the background, they were less anxious. They felt less pain when dealing with the needle. And the people that didn't have anything, this is, by the way, they asked the healthcare practitioners, the people that actually put the needles, says which one was easier. They said across the board, without a question, it was with the people the children that heard the music. So, for people that say that music doesn't affect you, music affects you. To the extent, how do you know that affects you? When you're dealing with money. Because you have even medical insurance that sometimes covers this music therapy. Now, unless there's like serious proof showing that it helps them, they're not interested in paying for it. But yet they are. There's some scenarios that they cover music therapy. They also made a study regarding the sleep quality. They had this study, they took teenagers, and they split them up into 3 groups. And there's also even people that were older than, also in their early 20s, that they took them into 3 groups. One group, 45 minutes, relaxing music before you go to sleep 3 times a week. Another group, you listen to an audiobook, right? We like to call them shiurim, whatever. Audiobook they were listening to. For, again, 45 minutes, 3 nights a week. The last group was a control group, nothing. And they found across the board that the people that listened to music before they went to sleep, again, the relaxing type of music, they were able to sleep better, they had less depressive symptoms, and overall had a better general quality of sleep. Now, the question is, so what type of music were they listening to? Now, I want to share with you just a few more studies on the severity on what happens when the type of music that you listen to, and unfortunately, the current type of music that you're listening to. The American Academy of Pediatrics, when they did research on 1,461 teenagers, and on the type of music that they listened to, and they found that the children, these teenagers that they were listening to, the more violent and the more promiscuous type of music they were listening to is what they end up becoming. Now, it doesn't mean that if they were listening to rap music, they were going to go and murder people. But it means that it affected them to the extent that they saw it in their study one after another, that it actually affected them. They had also a study done by the Prevention Research Center that said that people that listen to rap and hip hop are more likely to abuse alcohol and commit violent acts. By the way, not Jewish. This is a completely secular, non-Jewish study of the effects that music has. Now, I'll tell you like this, and the things that, you know, and the chashav rabbanim that we have over here. But if there's somebody by the name of Little Bo Beep that's going to speak and rap to you, and you think this is what you're really going to gain in life about it, what do you think that they're actually speaking about? All the disgusting things and you think it doesn't have an effect on you? I remember one time, maybe about 12 years ago, I was in Manhattan, and there was somebody handing out CDs in the corner, and it wasn't Torah lectures. Let's just leave it at that. He goes and he says, hey, listen. He says, you want to come listen to my music? So I said, you know, I'm going to start explaining to him, oh, this is non-Jewish music. I don't listen to non-Jewish, you know, go figure. I said, no, I'm not interested. And, you know, some of them are very aggressive, and they try again and again and again and again. I said, no, I don't. And finally I told him, I don't listen to music. He says, you don't listen to music? He says, well, what do you do? What do you listen to? Lectures? I don't know. Like, well, you know, he didn't take it. He forced it finally. Sometimes it's easier. Okay, fine, let me take this CD. I went around the corner, the closest dumpster, I put it inside. But what do you see on that cover of that CD that he wanted to, you know, go and make me listen to it? You see him, he's holding some weapons of mass destruction. There is a pile of baking soda, let's call it, in the background. There, and this, tattoos all over the face. And this is what you think, yeah, this has relaxed me. You know, the people, when they tell me, oh, you don't understand music. I'm like, no, you don't understand music. If this is the thing, the extent of dirt that's out there nowadays, and you think that it doesn't affect you, you're fooling yourself. One more study. There was a study done, and people listened to heavy metal and rock music. That said that this increases the risk of suicide, increases depression, and increases conduct problems. Now, this, like I said, has nothing to do with Yiddish, nothing to do with Judaism. We didn't even speak anything about Judaism. This is the effect that the secular people, the non-Jewish world, is telling you that it has on music. And then you have people that say, oh, no, it doesn't affect me. But you must put yourself in an entire scenario that you're not affected by anything else. By the way, if you ever think that external stimuli doesn't affect you, then you're fooling yourself. It affects everything that we see, everything that we hear, even things that we smell affect us. The power of a tune is so strong that even the way that you speak, the same words are going to either could be a derogatory statement, or it could be a compliment. Someone walks over to you and be like, "You're smart." Like, excuse me? Like, no, you're smart. Now, I said the same two words, but the tiny difference that I had in the way that I vocalized it, all of a sudden made a world of a difference. Meretz Hashem, whenever whoever's not married and you guys get married, you come home, you see your wife, maybe he's a little upset, you say, "Is everything okay?" "I'm fine." She's not fine. If you ask, "Is everything wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Something's wrong. But if she says, "No, I'm fine," nothing's wrong. All of a sudden, the same words, slightly different tunes, change everything. It changes the entire context of what you're trying to say. I want to share with you some things from Rabbi Elisha Sandler. He has a sefer B'shir V'zimra, brings down some very interesting facts and ideas on song. Rabbi Shaul Yedid of Majitz, another one of the rabbis from the Majitz dynasty, says like this, says music is the language of the soul. The Imrei HaKadosh brings down further, and it says that if somebody has the inability to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, has the inability to connect to Hashem, through music you'll be able to connect to it. Even furthermore, Rav Klonimus Kalman goes and says that music is the key to the soul. And this is why Rav Shlomo Alkabetz goes and explains, we're coming up to Purim. How come, do you ever realize in the story of Purim, Achashverosh went and he threw a party, a crazy party, that focused 4 out of the 5 senses. It speaks about the wine, it speaks about the food, it speaks about the cushions and the curtains and the paint, it speaks about everything if you look in the Midrashim, but it doesn't speak about music. How come Achashverosh didn't put on some music? Could have hired somebody, $50 maybe would have wanted to play for him, and he would have went over there and he would have played some music for him. Why couldn't he go and he have some music going on? Music is very entertaining. Wedding, people have music. Why didn't Achashverosh want any music over there? The answer is, there's one practical answer, that everybody has a different taste in music. And if you have a different taste in music, so what you're going to enjoy, I might not enjoy. So how could everybody, feel enjoyment to it? You need to, better not have it. But there's a deeper answer to it. We know that one of the reasons that Achashverosh threw this party, it was the end of the 70 years that there was a nevuah, there was a prophecy that came out by the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash that said that after 70 years there's going to be rebuilding of the second Beis Hamikdash. It's going to be the ending of the Geula. So that everybody, there was a few calculations. As usual, when you're dealing with calculations, it was miscalculated. And Achashverosh thought this is the time. So he threw a party to make sure that the Yidden are not going to get redeemed. So he wanted to make sure, he wanted to bring the point of the party was to bring the Yidden down, to bring them down to the lowest level. He says, if I'm going to put music is the key to the soul. It has a power. It's a language of the soul. If I put music, I'm going to lose them. They're going to go raise into the spiritual levels that I don't want them to. Said Achashverosh, it's not worth it for me to put music because music has the power to uplift you. The Gemara Chagiga brings down also that the Malachi Ashars, they sing Shira. They sing Shira, and what, I heard a very interesting, interpretation on why people, when they listen to music, they want to dance. Very odd thing, like the whole concept of dancing. And he says that your neshama is used to music. It hears music in the other world, in the next world, and it understands music. It's a language of the neshama. It remembers the songs, the shira that they heard. When you hear music, you get like, like your neshama, sort of lifts it up. And then your body brings it back down, crashes back down. And then you jump up again, and then you jump back down again. This is the idea, this is the concept that I heard, one of the reasons why you're dancing, when it's like a conflicting of emotions that are going on inside with you, and it results in sometimes in a little bit odd physical movement that results on what people call dancing. When you look, let's say, you look at some pictures, a collage of pictures, a slideshow that plays. Depending on the music, it could change it. If you have nice music, memories. If you have sad music, it's like, memories. And it changes the concept. And this is not even words. This is just a tune. There was a study done by people that are driving. I don't know why people, when they drive, they like listening to music. If anybody's not familiar and they're bored while they're driving, there's plenty of discs of Torah that you can listen to. There's Torah anytime that you can. There's so many things that you could do to it. It's not like you're missing entertainment. But they like listening to music. So they made a study on the type of music that the drivers are listening to. And they found that when the drivers were listening to more aggressive music, they drove more aggressively. When they were listening to different types of music, more relaxing music, they drove more calmer, more safer, if we may. We also know that music has an effect on you when you exercise. They made a study done that when somebody's going, and they made it on cyclists, on people that are pedaling, depending on the beats that they had and how fast were the beats or how fast people were cycling. So it affects you to such an extent that I don't know if you're understanding what the reason I'm bringing all these studies down. It affects you so much that it even makes you, the type of music that you're listening to is going to either make you go faster or slower, be more awake or be more sleepy. So it changes you. It changes you physically, kal v'chomer, for certainly it's going to change you spiritually. We know that not only has the ability to change you, it also has the ability to change your emotion, even in an instant. We know in Shalom Malach, he was, the Pasuk in Shmuel Aleph goes and says that V'ruach Hashem sara mi'imshal. The divine, the spirit of Hashem left Shaul. The Malbim goes there and explains that Shaul went to a little downstage. He was depressed. And you go a few psukim later, what did the servants say? What is going to get Shaul out? They said, you go look over there. Go find somebody that knows how to play a harp. Because music has the ability to take someone from depression to go and bring them out of depression. We know that in the Beis Hamikdash there were songs. The Levim, they sang. It was, by the way, this is both instrumental and vocal that the Levim sang in the Beis Hamikdash. And where do we see this? We see the Bamidbar. We see over here, it says, La'avoid avoidas avoida. It says it twice. What is this? The service of the service that they're working. Rashi there goes, and it's quoting a Gemara Rashi brings it down. That says this is the music. What is the music referring to? This is talking about the cymbals and the harps. This is the service for what? For the karbanos. This is what they used to serve. And this deals, Reb Simcha Banim of Shishcha goes and explains like this. He says that the world of music is very close to the world of tshuva. So much so that somebody is considered a fool if somebody is involved in the world of music and he's not in the world of tshuva. Because it's right there. It's all right there. This is how, and the Vilna Gaon also brings it down, that through the power of song you have the ability to defeat the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. That's the power of music that you have. So in the Beis Hamikdash, now the Shem Shmuel brings this down, in the Beis Hamikdash you have that when you bring a karbanos, sometimes there was music accompanying it. And the Kohanim would go, and they would see the whole point, one of the main points of bringing a carbon is for tshuva. You do the whole thing, but you don't have the tshuva, you're losing everything. So one of the main things is, what is for tshuva? The Kohanim were looking at the person bringing the carbon chatas, and says, this guy, I don't know, I don't feel that his tshuva is sincere. So they would signal to the Leviim, play something sad, play something that's going to bring him to a full sense of tshuva. And the Leviim would start playing with it. And once the Leviim were playing, and the Kohanim saw, okay, fine, we got to the level that we feel this is good, this is the correct level of tshuva, they quickly signaled to the Leviim, and they switched the tune to upbeat music. That's the extent that music played in the Beis HaMikdash. Now the Or HaMeir brings down, in the name of the Baal Shem Tov, that the Baal Shem Tov one time he heard someone play in a harp. And he said from the music that he heard him play, this musician play, he was able to figure out the averos, the sins that this person did. That's just what says the Or HaMeir. This is just from playing from the instrument. Imagine what it would be if he actually heard this person sing. I want to share with you something, a crazy chiddush. When I learned it, it was like really blew my mind. There's a Gemara in Megillah. In the Megillah over there, the Tosfos brings down that, when the Tarsha Baal Peh was brought down, it was Baal Peh, it was by heart. It was the oral law was oral. How are you going to remember all that? That's a lot of information to remember it. We know that music has the power also to help you with memory. That's why in children, when they teach them the ABCs, you teach them the Aleph Beis, you teach it to them with what? With a little bit of a tune, because it helps you remember it. Says Tosfos the same way. When the time the Torah Shabbat Peh was given, it was given with music. Says that Tiferes Yisrael, a crazy chiddush. Says, if I wouldn't have read this, I wouldn't ever, believe that this could. You're reading sometimes the Gemara, and it says in the Gemara, Chsur Mechsar v'Hakiktani. Right, so there's a question on the Mishnah, something is missing over there. So the Gemara says the Mishnah is missing a few words. This is the words that it's missing, and hence you're going to, solve all your questions. Question that the Tiferes Yisrael asks says, just put it inside over there. Addition, fix the addition. Put all the corrections inside the Mishnah. Why didn't they put the corrections inside the Mishnah if it was missing words? Answers the Tiferes Yisrael. It says, because and this is what he says for some cases, he says there was a special tune, a special niggin that was done for each particular Mishnah. That's how they remembered it. If you're going to start changing the lyrics of the Mishnah, then you're going to lose it. You're going to lose the memory. You're going to lose the song that you had. That's the extent that music played. That's the extent that music had the ability to go and be able to really connect you to the Torah, really be able to understand it and remember it. I remember one time, maybe 12 years ago, no more like 15 years ago. It was a Mir Yeshiva, and I was learning I had a library over there, and I was learning over there. And sometimes people are sitting over there, and that's why people are singing while they're learning. There was one guy who sat behind me, and he started singing and learning, and then about 5 minutes into it, he was singing the Gemara. It was an interesting halachic, understanding of how you're allowed to listen. It's a whole nice, interesting halachic concept of what are the abilities. Are we able to go and turn it into a song, and are we not able to go into a song? But l'maisa, for learning is not a problem. But this guy started off singing the words of the Gemara. 5 minutes later, he was on a kumzitz. He was going through a Shweki albums, behind. And it was disturbing over here. I'm trying to learn over here. He's thinking Imish Kachik. I'm like, what Gemara are you learning? What's going on over here? And they're going, so of course, when you're singing it's supposed to remind you, but you have to remember what you're dealing with over here. Some people go, and instead of singing with the tune of the Gemara, they actually just take themselves into another level, and they're just singing whatever song pops into their mind, and again, this guy was in his own world, oblivious that anybody else was around there. He went up over there, he was, I don't know, in his mind, he was a chazanis that was going on over there. A very interesting situation. I had to leave, actually. I couldn't concentrate anymore. But the Chidal goes and says that David HaMelech, he describes Torah as mirrors. What is the idea of this? When you're singing, it connects you to something. It connects you to something so much that you feel one with it. That's why you're in a different world. And that's why when the songs that you're supposed to be dealing with is songs regarding Torah, regarding at least Yiras Shamayim, something like that. But if you're doing something that's non-Jewish, non-kosher, whatever it is, to any extent that it is, imagine the effect that it's going to have in you. Imagine the effect that it has you. And this is, you could try this. I'm sure no one here listens, but people, whatever the situation is. And I've spoken to people regarding this. Stop listening for 3 months. And I can guarantee you, with 100% you'll feel different. You will feel physically different. I'm not talking about spiritually. You'll feel different. Even, and the spiritual world for sure. You're going to connect in a different way. You're going to be able to learn in a different way. Like, it has such a power on you that sometimes when you're in the dirt, you don't realize how much it affects you. When you get out of the dirt, you realize how dirty you are. When you stop listening for 3 months, when you stop listening for a while, then you walk into a store and you hear the music. You don't even understand how people can call this music. That's disgusting. This is what people enjoy nowadays. It will change your life. I can guarantee that. Rav Kalonymus Kalman Shapiro lived in the early 1900s. He asked a question like this. So music is such a strong power to connect you. It's a language of the neshama. It's a language of the soul. It's a key to the soul. How do you have all these impure songs, though? How do you have all these musicians that are so impure? And he goes and explains as follows. And he says that music, what it does is, it opens you up. It opens up your soul. Now, what are you going to put inside there? It all depends on you. You have an open house, and now it depends what you're putting inside there. You have two people. They both feel happy, they feel joy. One person can turn that into Avodas Hashem, it could become stronger. Another person can go and, party and go enjoy and, all the vulgar insanities that exist nowadays. Two people, they want to experience the same type of joy, go in two different ways. When a person says, Rav Kalonymus Kalman, he says, when a person listens to music, you're opening up your soul. And this is what you're putting inside of it. You have two options. You put something kosher, something that would uplift you, or you could put something that could drag you down to the lowest depths. He says even further. He says, and this is, the few Kabbalim bring this down as well also, that when you have somebody that's a musician that's singing a song, they put themselves into that song. Like a part of them, like a small part of their neshama actually goes into that soul. So when you're listening to this, when you're listening to Little Bo Beep and him and speaking at 40 miles per hour, which I could relate because I tend to speak that fast, go speak so fast, speaking about all the disgusting vanities that he's dealing with in his life, all the vulgar obscenities that he goes and describes, you're basically opening up your soul and you'll be like, all right, bring it in. That's basically what's happening. The Emer Shell goes down and says that the person who is singing, a chazan, someone who is involved in singing, takes a tremendous amount of responsibility on himself. Because it all depends on the musician. That musician can either elevate or destroy the person that's listening to it. Rabbi Avram Shor goes and says that songs coming from a person who is distant from pure thought, and I'm quoting, is like a poison-filled arrow which penetrates the heart of the listener. So again, and let me repeat this again, for you who think that it doesn't affect you, it affects you. Rabbi Yisrael Ilya Weintraub goes and says a musician who is non-kosher has the ability to cause others who listen to his music become non-kosher. Rabbi Yaakov Moshe Hillel has a big, I'm sure everybody here knows who he is. Has several yeshivas in Eretz Yisrael, big makubal. Goes and says like this. I want to quote for you quite a few things that he says. He says, any tune that was composed by a non-Jew or a Jewish sinner, even if it was not initially accompanied by lyrics, neither promiscuity or idolatry should not be listened to. Why? And again, he quotes the same thing that Rav Kalonymus Kalman quotes. And he says, because it arouses within the listener the very emotions that were in mind of the composer. The same thing that the composer had in mind when he was composing the song and singing the song, that's what you're getting inside. And then he goes and he says, what happened to the songs? There's unfortunately sometimes it creeps into the Jewish song albums, songs that stem from non-Jewish sources. He strongly rejects this. He goes and he says that, people, say, listen, in the olden days there were tikkunim, there were deep intentions, they were fixing these songs. He says whenever he hears something about that, it reminds him of what happens to Shabtai Tzvi. Shabtai Tzvi also wanted to do tikkunim, and look where he ended up with. He says, we don't deal with tikkunim and fixing the non-Jewish songs and turning into Jewish songs. But he goes on and says, but those that crept over, into the Jewish, repertoire of songs in the previous years and is accepted, he says those can still be listened to. But in general, we don't do this. We don't take other songs and make it Jewish and we're fixing it. We're doing tikkunim on it. The Gemara in Shabbos brings down the severity of what happens when you're dealing with nivel peh. Nivel peh, vulgar speech. When you're dealing with vulgar speech, the Gemara over there brings down very scary things. It says even the tefillos, the prayers of Yesaimis, of orphans and widows do not get answered. Now, I want to share with you, like my idea. Why orphans and widows? Now, Al Pi Chazal, they tell us that orphans and widows, tefillos, they get answered. Why? They have nowhere else to go. They're so vulnerable. They have nothing. They lost their foundation. They lost everything. They have nothing going on over here. So they go and they pray to Hashem. They daven to Hashem. Those tefillahs get answered because those tefillahs are really coming from the heart. They really mean it. They really connect to it. He says those are the most powerful tefillahs with the avera of nivel peh, with the sin of vulgar speech. Those tefillahs don't get answered if you think that it doesn't affect you. You know, the Reishis Chachma brings down, and listen very carefully, I'm going to quote a few. People of low worth are drawn after low songs. Again, people of low worth are drawn after low songs. Why would you bring yourself down to that level? Rav Nachman of Breslov also brings down that he says one who hears music from a wicked musician is difficult for him to serve his creator. If he hears it from a kosher musician, then it's good for him. This is what we're dealing with. Besides that, you have the halachic issues that you're dealing with non-Jewish music, whether it be from nivel peh. Of course, anything that has to do with any other religion is, avodah zarah. That's 100% forbidden without any. There's no questions even to ask it with. But there's so many. Even by the way, that's even just tunes is a problem when you're dealing with tunes from avodah zarah. I remember I was one time in a very, very odd situation. I was in a meeting I was the only Jewish person there. Everybody else was Asian. And they had this thing that was plugged into the wall, and it was like soft music that was playing, but it was chants that were going again and again. And I was there, I came into there, I'm like, okay, fine, you know what? I'm here for a short period of time. I'll deal with it. I'm not going to say anything. After like 2 minutes, I literally felt like I was melting. Like my soul was like getting ripped apart. And it was just chants. Now, if anybody's familiar with the Asian culture, I mean, they're all based on, avodah zarah, everything with that. And I'm sure this was what it was dealing with. After a few minutes, I'm like, I had to stop them. I'm like, I'm sorry. I bet, but that's really disruptive. Can we pull that out? And they actually pulled it out. And what you think is not, you don't realize the connection. When you're staying far away from all this type of music and then you listen to something, you feel it different. You're like, you feel yourself falling down. The Gemara in Yuma brings down, there's many issues regarding tznius that people think are permitted, but in essence are not. And somebody who indulges in these type of things, the Gemara brings down that it distance a person from Torah. And the Steipler also brings down that this also can bring a person to depression. Now, what happens when you're dealing with something like Kol Isha? Right, Kol Isha. You look at the Mishnah Berurah. It's very straightforward. It's 100% not allowed. The Gemara in Brachos brings down that it's erva, to the extent that it's erva. And you're going to say, okay, it doesn't affect me, it doesn't bother me. Again, not true. It affects you and it bothers you to the extent that even, the halacha is even like, what age are you not allowed to listen to a woman sing? So it's a machlokas. Either there's 3, 6, 9. Moshe finds it because if you're really desperate for whatever reason that you're desperate until age of 11, but after that, that's it. It's not allowed. Halachically, it's a very big problem. And people go and they say, no, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't affect me. I cannot tell you enough, and I hope you realize that I'm repeating it again and again because there's no such thing as it doesn't affect you. It affects you to a tremendous, tremendous extent. I don't know if I should bring this up or not. I really don't. But, somebody who, let's say, learns, goes and opens up, some halachic authorities and says, well, listen, maybe there's a heter. Maybe you could say that there's a heter in it. That, you're listening onto the radio, so it's not really the voice, and it's really, you're going to find all the heterim that you're going to be able to follow. First of all, the first thing that I want to say when you're dealing with heterim, learn the sugya. Learn exactly what's dealing with the heterim. People like to hear, well, okay, I'm allowed to do this. Okay, fine, that's it. That's all I want to hear anymore. And they don't actually go and delve into it. For example, let's say, Chacham Ovadia Yosef goes and brings down. So it says, if you never saw a woman and you never saw the singer, and there's certain situations where it's not so problematic. But if you went and you saw it once already, saw just a picture of this woman once, already it's problematic. Whether it's alive, whether it's dead. And by the way, this is talking about only kosher type of music, not vulgar, not everything else like that. Which again, I don't think exists nowadays. Kosher, secular music. I don't think. This also reminds me, people think that if it's in Hebrew and it's secular, it's okay. No, it's Israeli. there's the same amount of filth, unfortunately, in the secular Israeli music as just like it is in the American type of music. So just because it's in Hebrew doesn't change anything. Be like, no, 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 this is okay, it's Israeli. So one of the things that really, when it comes into this, and I know for some people that are very involved with this type of world, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to leave that type of world. But one thing you have to do is you have to be true to yourself. Don't lie to yourself. The last thing that you want to do is lie to yourself, say it doesn't affect me, it doesn't bother me, it has no, I need it, whatever it is. If you're doing something wrong, it's advice that I give people, let's say they're not unable to change, which again, I don't believe, I think everybody is able to change. But if you're doing something wrong, the first thing that you have to do is realize I am doing something wrong. Because if you don't think that you're doing anything wrong, guess what? You're never going to change. If somebody is an angry person, if somebody's a lazy person, if they think, okay, fine, I'm just tired, I get heated up very quickly. If you don't admit to your faults, if you don't know what your problems are, you will never correct yourself. And I can't tell you how important this advice is, especially once you get married. Once you get married, if you're going into marriage thinking, you know what, I'm okay, I'm good just the way that I am. You should know, by the way, the second that you say you're okay, you realize that you're not okay. We're here for a purpose, we're here for a reason. The Vilna Gaon says one of the purposes of us being over here is that we have to fix our character traits. So if you think that you're perfect, you're not. Hate to burst your bubble. Nowadays, everybody says, self-esteem, you have to be so careful with the self-esteem. Well, guess what? There are things that you need to work on, and you need to figure it out. And if this is one of your problems, then you have to realize, regardless of whatever you personally decide to do with your life, you have to realize this is going to be a problem. Now, I quoted an extensive amount on secular studies to just prove to you of the effect that music has on you. As many people say, every time that I speak with people on this matter, but I'm talking about a person like a one-on-one, says it doesn't bother me, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I need this to bring it up. If you're sad and depressed and you need 3 hours of music to bring yourself up, then music is not your answer. You probably need therapy or other situation. Music, if people go to the extent, there are studies done on how many hours a day people listen to music. It's crazy how much we're in a world of music that it's scary. You're talking about teenagers up to 40 hours a week. That's a full-time job of listening to music. These are people that are constantly in the morning, on the way here, constantly with, always with this music. One thing also is I don't understand how people listen to the same song so many times. You repeat a Dvar Torah to somebody, he says, I heard this already, I'm not interested in it. Well, you just heard a song for the 15th billionth time, and you're able to do that. And say, oh, it's different, it has a tune behind it. Listen, you can find plenty of little clips on Torahs that has also music in the background. Play piano while you listen to a Torah. I don't know, build yourself music. But the truth is that, when we're dealing with a topic like this, and I really feel this is why not too many people speak about it. It's difficult. For some people that are stuck in this world, it's very hard to leave. Forget about movies, forget about TV, forget about all that entire world. This is something that, think people, nowadays we think not an issue, not a problem, not going to affect me. So much so that it's going to affect you that it will change your outlook. They had another study that was done that they made someone listen to a particular piece of music, and then they showed this person a neutral picture. By I mean a neutral picture, not positive, not negative, you can interpret it, open for interpretation. And they saw, depending on what type of music that person just listened to, is how is he going to interpret that picture. Meaning that your music is also not only going to affect what you are right now, it's also going to affect your perception of how you see things. You're going to listen to some type of music, you're going to see the life, you're going to see the world in a different eye. You're going to see good music, you're going to see the world in a good way. You're going to see bad music, the world is in a bad way. They made a study, this was a crazy, crazy study that was done. They made a study with a bunch of participants, says list me your 10 favorite songs. They listened to these 10 favorite songs to a bunch of participants, and then I think they were psychologists, what they did is they tried to predict your type of character traits, your personality traits based on your music that you listen to. And guess what? They were right on target with a lot of things. They saw people that listen to certain things have a low self-esteem. People listen to have a high self-esteem. People, and I guarantee you, rap, hip-hop, rock, all these things didn't come up high in the totem pole of success in life. And this is the things that, especially when you're dealing with spirituality, especially when you're dealing with things that you want to connect, you want to become a better person. Nowadays, we live in a world that we become desensitized to things. And to the extent that 100 years ago, if somebody would say something like this, either would get arrested or kicked out. Nowadays, we're like, okay, it's normal. I have people that come to me and they speak to me. I deal a lot in the Kiruv world. They speak, hey bro, I'm sorry, Rabbi, I have a question, for you. And they start asking these type of questions that people should really be, embarrassed to speak publicly. Privately, you have to open up to your Rav, to your Rabbeim, on anything and everything. But publicly, people don't have any busha to even say, oh yeah, I do this all the time. We're desensitized to it. We think it's not a problem with it. You look at the secular world. Look what's happening in public schools. Look what's happening in the world over there. We're wondering, why is there so much violence? Why is there so much Really? We're wondering? We don't know? Listen to what the kid is listening to. You have a 10-year-old listening to a rapper go and speak about how he's going to murder people and how he's going to do this and all the stuff that he's going to do. And then we're shocked. What's going on over here? Yeah, people playing video games. Also another thing that they waste their life with. They're playing video games for nonstop over here for hours on day, and then we wonder what's happening. No, it has no effect on me. It has affected you that you don't even realize how bad it is. You don't even realize how difficult it is. It's like somebody who smokes. Somebody who smokes and he tries to run. It says, okay, listen, it's not healthy, but it doesn't affect me that much. I'm just out of shape, that's why I can't run. And then all of a sudden, what happens when you stop smoking for a while? All of a sudden, you're able to breathe, actually. You're able to appreciate, some air. Because when you're in it, you don't feel the problem. You don't feel the issue. When dealing with song, the Sefer Hasidim brings down that it's a mitzvah to sit and sing praises on Shabbos. And he quotes also the Tehillim, Mizmor Shel Yom Shabbos, Tov L'Hodos L'Hashem U'Lezamer L'Shimcha Elyon. Rabbi Shimshon Pincus goes and quotes the Zohar and says that Shabbos is Yom HaDenishmasa. It's the day of the neshama. It's the day of the soul. Meaning the day of the soul, the language of the soul, that's when you're connecting to the song. That's why, by the way, it's very, very important. People need to sing Zmiros on Shabbos. I've heard crazy stories what happened to the effect of people that don't sing Zmiros in their house. Very important to sing Zmiros. It's not like, hey, if you're bored and you're sitting over here, you have nothing to do with sing Zmiros. No, it's very important to sing Zmiros. It's connecting it. Have you ever had this, the connection that you have when you have a kumzitz? How is it sometimes people can get to such a high level, stronger than a shir, and I'm not saying, don't go to shir so you could, do your kumzitz. But sometimes you can connect so much by having a kumzitz. What do you have a kumzitz? You have people sitting over there, one guy's playing a guitar, it's usually dark, everyone's singing off key, and they're screaming on top of their lungs. It's not like, they're not practicing, not the best musicians around, but yet you feel so connected and you're in like another whole world. How is it that you're so connected? You're just singing. Why is it? Think about it. There's nothing else. What else can you do that connects you so much to the level that it connects you? What else do you have an external stimuli that affects you so much? In Esther, in the first paragraph of Esther, it says, it says the king's heart was filled with wine. The Vilna Gaon brings down, and we know that every time that it says the Melech, when it's dealing Melech in Megillas Esther, it's not referring to the king. It's not referring to the king Achashverosh, it's referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Says the Vilna Gaon, it says, over here, it quotes over based off the Gemara and Megillah, that says that this day, what was the Taiva Melech B'yayin? What was it? It was that day was Shabbos. And which Melech we're referring to? We're referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It says, really? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is enjoying wine? Well, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have an effect of wine. It says, but rather, what was the enjoyment? He says the Yidden, the Jewish people, when they're sitting and they're having Kiddush on wine, and then they're going, and what are they doing? And they're sitting on their Shabbos table, and they're singing Zmiros, they're singing, and bringing themselves closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you're going and you're saying Divrei Torah, the Taiva Melech behind. This brought the Simcha to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This was able to bring it, to that level. And by the way, it's very interesting, the Torah brings down also Baruch She'amar needs to be said with a song, and the Rabbi Yosef Akar also brings the Mizal aside that there's different tefillas is also based on song. Song has a tremendous effect in our lives. It has such a tremendous effect that it could affect us to such drastic extremes. I want to finish with you a story that I heard. It doesn't really have so much to really be related with music. I heard it from Rabbi Yoel Gold. Rabbi Yoel Gold is unbelievable. You want somebody who does research on his stories. He actually brings down the people that the stories were affected, and he goes and they say the story. So there's a story about a person by the name of Shimi Weitzhandler. It's a person from Eretz Yisrael who was a violin player. And they flew him into California to play in some sort of dinner that was taking place in the Herzog Winery. And he lands by in LAX, he landed in the airport, and his host picks him up, drops him off at the house. And then they were going to travel to the winery, which is about an hour, drive. They go, they stop by the house, he drops off his suitcase, leaves his violin in the car. And, after it's time for them to get ready to go to the dinner, they pack up back in the car, and they drive for an hour. They get to the dinner right on time. They open up he opens up the trunk, and he sees the violin is gone. And he starts panicking. This is all that he was here for. And he goes to the host and says, "Where's the violin?" He says, "Where'd you put the violin?" He says, "I left it in the back of the car." He says, "Which car?" He says, "The car that you picked me up with." He says, "That was my wife's car." He says, "This is my car." He says, "I didn't know you had left anything in the back of there." And he says, "You gotta be kidding me." He says, and the kicker is that he was the only one who had the keys for his wife's car. And there was no way that he would be able to drive back and come back again to get the violin. He thought he's done. He said they flew him in from Eretz Yisrael to California to play at a dinner, and now he has nothing. What is he going to do? You can't a cappella it. He was stuck. And, he thought his business was ruined. He says no one's going to hire him. A year later, he's sitting in Eretz Yisrael, he gets a phone call from the same administrator. He says, "Hi, we want to invite you back in to play at the dinner." He says, "Do you remember what happened last year?" He says, yeah. He says, "No, listen, we know they understood his talent." He says, "We want to bring you back in." So he says, "Please, whatever it is, I want to go back in. Whatever it is, I want to make things right." So he flies back in. I'm sure this time he held it the entire time. He didn't put anything in the back. He goes and he plays, at the Herzog, winery at the dinner, like he's never played before. The emotion and everything that he put inside over there, because he has a second chance. He has a second chance that he never had before. So many times in life, we have a background music that plays in our life. We have our tune, if I can call it, that's going in our life. And you have a chance to choose what is the tune that you're going to choose to be playing your life. You have an option of succeeding, and you have an option of failing. And I think you all know what that option really is. But even more so, I want to finish off with one lesson that he brings down from this type of, from this story. He goes and says like this, says that, many times in life we mess up. We fall, we crash, we burn. And sometimes we want nothing more than just to fix that. We feel so bad, we fell, we could do it better. And sometimes all we want to do is like, "Oh, please, God, please Hashem, please just give me one more shot." It's a thought that goes in everybody's mind on the deathbed. So just give me one more shot to do it right. So guess what? Baruch Hashem, you guys are all young over here. You have another shot. You have another shot to choose how you're going to live your life. It's not only relevant only to music. It's relevant to everything else. All the other entertainment, all the other external stimuli that you're going to be putting into yourself. It is all going to depend on how you're going to live those moments. Those moments of entertainment is going to affect you and how you are on your highest and strongest point. All I'm asking, and I'll finishing off. I know I finished off 3 times already. Finish off really with this. Be true to yourself. Be honest to yourself. Realize the effect that it has on you physically and spiritually. And Amir Hashem, when you actually do think about that, I can guarantee you're going to make the right choice. Thank you very much.